And you're live.
All right, we are back at House Education on Tuesday, March 11th, continuing our discussion on H 454, the two-Taylor education bill. All right, so we just had I think we just had a really good kind of roundtable about districts and all of that. So to continue that, the harder question is, how do we go from that high-level discussion to a discussion about how many districts, who draws the lines? So here's some of the issues we have. One, Ways and Means would very much like a number or two or three, so that they can model what that would do within a foundation formula construct. Two, we have a very limited amount of time for this bill. Those are the two big ones.
Can I ask you a question about
Yeah.
the first one? They want a number, but are they okay with a range too?
I don't know to the level to which they are okay with a range.
Okay, I just didn't know
But we
what
could
they've
give
been
them
telling you.
three numbers, which is sort of the equivalent of a range. Yes, Leanne?
Actually, well, no, I'm not ready yet.
All right. So this really returns us to a discussion we were having last week, where we sort of went round and round. So we've had, I think that at a minimum, we need to come up with numbers so that they can do their job. I don't know about drawing lines. I think I would rather see another group of people, even if it's very similar to this group of people, take all of the time so that when we were to come back in January, we would say, okay, here are, given the numbers that you gave us, here are three options and the pros and cons of each of these options. And then we make a very fast decision. So anyway, I just put that out there. Yeah, all right, Lee and Josh and Chris.
So with the three options, maybe we can kind of discuss how it might look like in each option. With the CTE option, which I am a proponent of, and also based on the feedback I've gotten, don't districts that exist now, with, I know the exception of your district, aren't they mostly assigned to a tech center? And so like with a district that had multiple ones, we could either
Yeah,
say,
it's not my district,
Oh,
but you're
okay.
referring to one that I had
All right.
mentioned that gets to go to.
I mean,
either.
like perhaps an option,
If you look at the CTE map that's up there, it does.
right?
What, is it the
So-
gold one or the green one? Gold. Oh, okay.
I guess my question is, do those lines for the most part already exist? And with a situation like that, you could say either vote on one or have choice for either one for that particular district, but like those lines exist, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So-
I would look at those lines and not think about the actual CTEs.
No, you.
I just
Okay.
look at, are those good lines or are they, not?
But why would you not look at the CTE center?
Because CTE governance and sort of how that's all gonna work is is being dealt with elsewhere. And
Okay,
it's gonna be dealt with sort of separately from the operational
All right.
office in K-12.
well, it seems
But-
like that could expedite the process to go with lines like that got at the
Yeah,
CTE
so, I
centers
mean, I would say
anyway and
I
already
haven't
existing.
looked at those lines closely, but it's fair to say they probably don't break up school districts. And they were probably drawn with some purpose
Mhm,
in terms of regions.
right, so that's what I would suggest,
Yeah.
which seems like it could
What I
expedite.
don't know is like, are they imbalanced in that,
Oh,
there are some areas where there are really, frankly, very few kids.
right.
And so should some of those regions be?
Melded,
Maybe
yeah.
hung up
Yeah.
on this.
Taxing.
Yeah, you get two kids over there.
I continue to look at the VSBA map, which I realize is also, it is a map that was drawn for the purposes of holding regional meetings and nothing else. But it's just an option, or in terms of like numbers of regions. I think it's done based somewhat on a similar number of students, the VSBA regional map.
The range of students, Susan Glowski, Executive Director of VSBA, the range of students, I think ranges from about 4,000 to 10,000 in the region.
A lot of areas.
No, that one's, oh, it's 11, yeah. It's 11.
Right, it's 11.
11 regions, yes.
Yes, Josh, Chris, and then Emily? Yeah, okay.
So I'll throw out there, the three that keep popping into my head are 9, 12, and 15. 9 based off what the Senate produced the week before last. 12 actually based off of the 11 you just spoke about, but adding a 12 because I think that's what would be needed to make each of the districts more similar population size of students. And then I like this CTE it just keeps coming to my mind, like no matter what I do, that's the one that keeps popping up. I do think that maybe getting some testimony on the CTE one sooner than later would be good, and why it was created, what went into creating it, was there, because like you said, that one seems more logical to have had some kind of specific input as to why, where, and who is included in each of those districts, whether it be student count, support the CTE. I don't know, like, I think there is something there that could be
Is there anybody
beneficial.
around who can actually speak to the history of those songs?
But also, like, it could very much simplify our decision, at least with that one model, because if it does look like it works, and that's something we can move forward with in a very quick time fashion, like this time round.
Well, let me just, but take a quick survey from everybody, just, does everybody agree that the lines that get drawn should not break up existing school districts?
I don't.
I have something to say about that.
Do it.
I think that, setting, you're jumping over Chris, so, and I don't want to go over Chris, because it does relate to what I was gonna say.
You can. Okay.
So I'm not hung up on a map at all. I'm hung up on what, I deeply believe that it is not the place for this committee to do it. I don't think we're best suited to create new districts ourselves. I think we should set up a group or whatever, however we do, we'll decide that. And then base it on specific criteria. If we say we don't want to separate school districts from each other, I think that that's putting a limit. I think it's ideal if school districts want to stay together. Yes, of course, they shouldn't be broken apart, but there are probably around this state, some districts. I have one that's sort of thinking about going to another, exploring going to another SU. And I'm not trying to say that that's right or wrong. I'm just trying to say, I think that that's a limitation that we would be putting on the group who's going to be looking into this. So what I would rather say is, to the best of, for the students and communities, we shouldn't break up district lines. That's all.
That was gonna be my point too.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
No hard, fast.
Yeah.
No, that's good because that's exactly what I was thinking. To the best of our ability, I don't think we should be, separating the districts that are currently together right now. And as far as kind of coming up with the numbers right now, I just want to make sure that this is going to allow the Ways and Means Committee to move forward with the foundation formula without knowing exactly the geographical kind of construct of the actual district.
I will return tomorrow with the conversation.
Thank you. I'd like to know more.
Yeah, thank you. I think, I disagree. I think that we could draw them. I think we would be able to do that in here. The CTE, I think we could go with the CTE with some minor adjustments. I'm just looking at like Franklin County. We wouldn't need 2. I think Old Hollow's too small. And then you'd have to look at some outliers of like where Fairfax and Fletcher, if they still go in with Chittenden County, things like that. I do, like I said, I like the Bogarts map. The VSBA one is one I haven't really looked at, but just glancing at it across, looks like it could make sense, but I think we could take a map and just put our heads together and come up with something.
Not arguing that we could.
Of
course we could.
That honestly, my thought about Ways and Means being able to move forward, if they can't move forward without those lines, then maybe proposing the VSBA. to them, just to see, or proposing, you know, I mean, because there'll be adjustments made, but they won't be huge adjustments to where I think that it'll knock the foundation formula off kilter and in the wrong direction.
Cause I think like that, getting that moving this term, or this year is really important to moving.
Anything else?
through, right? Not waiting a year to do it.
You know, the timeline spelled out in H 454.
Yeah.
I think even those who created it would say is aggressive.
Ambitious.
That's
Yeah,
what I
good
would-
I was just about to ask if it was within our scope to say, you know, okay, these first 3 years are this will get done, this will get done, and then we could say within 5 years, within 10 years, within 15 years.
Yeah.
Everything is within our scope.
Because I think that would be important.
Yes.
to-
I
Yeah,
mean, I think it does spell out like a 5-year plan, right? Not everything happens day one, right?
Right.
It's year one is funding formula, year two is governance, year three is looking at schools, right? So it's,
Right.
you know, not, I think 10 years, 15 years is way too long, right? Then the next generation of kids is not, the kids in school in the next 5 years, within, you know, they're not gonna enjoy
I
that.
mean, the bill outlines process. I'm not sure it has to be as quick and aggressive as it's there, but it outlines a process. It's very similar to the process we went through with Act 46. Okay, like that.
Okay, so going back to how many districts and who does it? How many districts? I'm thinking around 10. You know, haven't looked at the Baumgart's map in great detail, but there were some parts I liked about it. 17, yeah, I think once you get past 20 even, I think
It's not right.
it's not enough of a consolidation of that. Who does it? I don't know. I don't know that this has to be the committee that does it.
Well, I would just say,
But-
when we say this being the committee that does it
Yeah,
in 2 weeks,
into it, right.
while doing all of our other work.
But if you're going to form a commission to do it, or anything, almost like you had for the construction group over the summer that would do it?
So I'd have to, you know, so
We need to
as
think about
I
that
noodle
more.
around in my head, it is a group that would probably need the
Could
support
include
of
legislators.
JFO
Yes.
and Ledge Council.
Yeah,
So therefore it has to be a legislative
yeah.
committee.
Yeah.
Which you can add more to.
So our work in the next 2 weeks would be to set up the criteria for that group. If that's the
Yeah, I
way
think that's
that you
fair
wanted
to
to
say,
go.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
All right, so I know my marching orders is to come in here tomorrow with better clarity on what Ways and Means needs
Yes.
to do their work.
And is Ways and Means the only, GovOps doesn't need to worry about that.
No, I
one.
get it.
It's just Ways and Means is really the. Okay.
Dan?
Can I ask a question about our work in general, but not necessarily the maps?
Yes.
No, okay, so I'm wondering about with the whole crossover date, sorry, this is my first year. Anything that we don't decide on by crossover date, we have to wait till next year?
Correct.
So if we don't deal with the cell phone bill before crossover date, it's not gonna happen for next.
Well, so the political process or the policy process is, it's not as cut and dry as all of that.
Yeah,
So yes, if we have something like, we do need to pop out the epinephrine bill
yeah,
and maybe the miscellaneous ed bill by crossover.
uh-huh,
We will also get bills from the Senate.
Right.
And, you know,
okay,
potentially, maybe not, that we can then add something onto if we need to.
okay,
So there are other ways that sort of like, so, and the cell phone bill in particular, I know that there is strong, because we are been really tied up with this stuff,
yeah,
there's strong conversation of it originating over there.
Yeah.
So it may come to us
okay,
that they did first,
and then.
because we're crossing in both directions.
Yeah. I'm also like, there are things that like that one I'd like to see eventually on the floor. And I'm also wondering, like, are we planning on dealing with the bill that Kate introduced with the reorganization of rulemaking and, sorry, what is that bill number?
Right, so
Yeah.
Probably not in the sense of taking it up as a full bill, but when we look at what we're doing here, do we want to take elements of that and make it part of it? We can, because that bill, the H454 talks about rulemaking and state board and all
Yeah.
that. And maybe we say, well, we also have political realities. In other
Right.
words, just because we pass it,
Doesn't
doesn't mean that
it'll
that it is a poison pill for somebody else.
Yeah,
So we have to bear all of those political realities in mind. But maybe we say, so then we look for middle paths.
Mhm.
yeah,
So maybe this committee says, well, as part of this, let's make some of the people on the state board not appointed by the governor, but appointed by the speaker or by the committee on committees in the Senate.
mhm.
Yeah, that's.
So there's all sorts of middle grounds in different ways that things get included. But yes, most of what you see up there is not gonna see the light of day
Right.
this year or next year. Josh?
So just to the answer, just to clarify, so we could in theory, like, put the cell phone bill in this thing.
No,
Or put it.
well, we could,
It's a
but.
Right, or you
we're
could
not-
put it in the ed bill,
We need to
the
be working.
miscellaneous bill if you want. I'm just saying, these are things, you can take anything and put it into anything.
Yes.
Well, it has to be
Well, it's
germane.
Yeah.
Well, no, but we can,
Well,
it can
this-
originate here, and then
Yes.
if we
Oh.
do, it's basically.
Yeah, so like,
germane.
to your point, like if the cell phone bill, that could in theory go into the.
But we aren't gonna do, we're not gonna do anything that
Yeah.
isn't done well.
Right.
Right.
In
Right,
other words,
It's
all of
like
this requires testimony and thoughtfulness and all that.
And-
We don't have time to do what's necessary, we're not gonna do it.
actually, when I posed my question, that was just an example I
I was
used,
just
because that was
using
really
this.
big, but the one I'm really thinking about is like, the conversation about the politicization of the Secretary of Education and the power that that position holds,
That-
like, I am all for really reconsidering that. And
Yes,
So I'd like
that-
to know when we can have that conversation, make that decision, try and potentially push that idea,
Right, so that again.
or not.
Right. We don't have time. That's a
Yeah, that's
huge
huge.
shift. That would
Okay,
be a session-long discussion.
okay,
And so this may not be the session for that.
okay.
It also has lots of political baggage with it.
Mhm.
That could, do you do something where the Senate's not gonna go along with it, the governor's gonna veto it? How much time do you want to devote to
Do we
something?
know that, though? I mean.
No, we don't know anything. All I'm just saying, is these
Yeah.
are all the considerations. that have to go
Better,
into it.
better. Yeah. That's right.
I'm looking for some clarification again, now that the Dr. Week. The draft committee bill that you put out, DR 25-0937, which was gonna be the vehicle, and we said that time it's placeholders. Any thoughts on moving forward with that at all, or now this is our vehicle, and that's only because I'm getting a
No,
million
yeah, sure.
emails about that.
I mean, tune out the
Last
noise.
week.
Yeah.
At this point, we are dealing with the bill in front of us.
Right.
And how we can work within it. I would look at that as in the absence of anything else, that's what we needed to come up with, so that
Yes.
there was a piece of paper for people to have access
That's my
to.
understanding. It was a vehicle, it was a draft, some placeholders.
But it's also a holding
A
area
holding area.
for ideas and thoughts that may be part of this.
Can I give an example of that
Yeah.
for me? The class size minimums versus the student teacher ratio piece.
Yeah.
That we
Perfect
put
example.
something in there that I thought was really pretty thoughtful and I need to know more about why that one's not
In the draft.
good. Yeah, well, I mean, in both draft bills, it's addressed, but two different ways.
Mhm.
So our draft bill, the one that you
Right.
routed off the number for.
Well, only because I have
Has
45 emails.
Yeah, I haven't been getting those, but, yeah, I think I wanna look at that.
Yeah. I mean,
Mostly concerned about the
the-
restriction on it's independent schools.
Yeah,
You can just say it was, yeah.
No,
Respond or
no
not.
discussion, no testimony, no decisions have been made at this
Yeah.
time.
Uh,
No, the draft bill,
it's a conversation vessel.
That's designation.
because someone put
All
out
right.
a call to action about it.
we got some time here, so I will work with Ways and Means to get some
That hasn't
decisions.
passed yet.
I am generally feeling a little more comfortableness, I wouldn't say total agreement, with the idea that if we can, that we would, at a minimum, like to do a number or a range of numbers, whatever is acceptable.
Mhm.
But that, line drawing is up for debate, and that sounds like it's up for reasonable debate, and that not everybody's married to a certain position here, except Chris is.
Always.
Yes.
So I question it with, yeah, we're gonna hopefully present Ways and Means with, numbers, or 3 numbers. Should that number also go to the Agency of Education for their modeling to kind of see how it works out in their proposal that they have?
Well, that's a good question. I'll ask that as well for Ways and Means. JFO may be already set up to do the modeling using various.
Right, I didn't know if going to Ways and Means automatically kind of do that in the.
I mean, we would always prefer to have our own people do the modeling. Yeah. Yes.
It sounded like, from one of the testimonies from the agency, that the modeling that the JFO has, that Ways and Means has, is like the same engine that was done for the cloud. So I think hopefully that, if that's the case, that would be nice to streamline.
I mean, what you're gonna hear from more and more from folks on Ways and Means is that, a lot of the assumptions built into the APA model, need some clarifications and improvements and changes.
I guess when you're asking tomorrow about like maybe seeing what their time frame is to get back to us on what, if we give them 3 or a range, like how long so they can say, these are the optimal size window that you have, like is that a day?
I think all it's gonna do is, I think all that they're gonna be able to do with the number is say, well, using the evidence-based model, then the base amount would be this.
Right, foundation.
And again, we have a baseline conflict in that right now, in that the evidence-based model is based on a future state that does not exist and probably will not exist in completion for 20 years. So there's that conflict right away. So you go to an evidence-based model that is more based on what we have today and a gradual change in that. So that's for them to work out and to figure out. But that's just one of the inherent conflicts we have right now. So yes, the evidence-based model potentially saves $183 million. That's if every school has 400 kids and ratios and all of that. All right, any other thoughts, ideas? We got plenty more time this week to continue. We can move on to, bigger districts. We are always going to have the issue of what does that mean for the current mixed delivery systems that we have? All right, how do we, you can't have that in a district. We have to have consistency. And that consistency means a K-12, everybody's an operating district with a K-12 option. We know they're gonna have to be carve outs, so let's build on the system, not base it on the carve outs, but base it on everything else. So this just brings us back to, for me, the language that's in the governor's bill about school choice schools works to solve that conflict. And I think we can use some of that to make that happen. It is in keeping with the bill that y'all have sponsored. But I just want to put that out there for everybody to think about. And so therefore, think about, okay, does the language in 454 for you adequately address it? I still need to think about it, maybe talk with the state council about, am I reading this right? And so therefore, is that how we address this conflict? So it's always this is gonna be the thing that we have to struggle with, no matter what we do, is how to handle a large district has choice in some areas, that has, maybe just for seventh and eighth and others. Alongside a district that doesn't mean the map that Seth Baumgart's created is really just to preserve what exists. Because it only does a few larger districts. In other words, it just does huge SUs. So you have a superintendent now answering to 50 school boards.
Well, that's how it's preserves what there is, because it's not SD, I mean,
There's
SDs
some
or
SDs.
school districts, it's
The
FU
FUs are there.
system to keep choice as it's.
Right.
I mean, I think, honestly, the governor's proposal is probably raising alarm bells in the independent school world. It's kind of, I find it very intriguing. I would do it without a requirement that you have to have a school choice school in your district if the board chooses not to. And I would do it with obviously larger school boards. Anyway, yes.
Okay.
Questions on that or?
So I'm just looking to clarify the question. So you're saying for us to sort of think about individually, does 454 address the conflict that exists about in geographic areas that don't fully operate all grades? So like, how comfortable are we with the ideas that are as they exist in that version?
If we are going to have larger districts, we have to address this
Right.
issue.
We do,
Uh,
and it's been addressed here.
And in a way, 454 did that with their 5, and that's really how they answered it, was with the school
Right.
choice school system.
Well, and I think too, like, I know there's, I see where you're saying not to say that every district has to have one school, but that actually answers or fixes the question that you have of how you deal with one district that has choice and then another district that might say, we don't want any. Right, everyone having to have one. Every district has the same opportunity for choices or whatever we call it as any other district, because it's only one. You can have more, but that comes up to districts, right? So that kind of levels that playing field a bit.
That's
Well,
not different from the system.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to require it, so the school district decide or.
So but I'm saying that might be a reason why that is there,
Yeah.
is to create that equity across districts.
But we actually have that today, 9, 12, choice across districts, so that's not even a change.
It's actually based on, you're absolutely right, it's based on current law.
In that 5 districts, it's only 5 schools, 5 choice schools, that's all they pick, right? So that's where also having the larger districts kind of limits that as well.
But, well, there's no limit on how many.
We could limit, but I'm saying, but by having it saying it's required to have one, right? It's a small, I don't know, I'm just trying to talk through it.
I mean, the governor's proposal, they just, you can have 1, but you could also have 5, 20, but it by definition, it limits which independent schools will qualify to basically 6 or 7.
And it doesn't actually,
So if you want to you'd be creating public.
where every one of those school choice schools could be public schools.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
not
It doesn't have- they don't,
I mean, I
there's
think-
no qualification there that has to be an independent.
No, I mean, I, that's a part of the bill that I think is like in the right direction.
If you're in a district, if you look at, Chittenden County, which really has no history of independent schools being part of the mix. And all of a sudden you're requiring them to create a school choice school. They would have to convert one of their public schools
No,
into it.
can't the school choice schools be public schools?
Yes.
Oh, no, but it's saying, it has to be the other criteria.
Oh, okay.
But we said.
Yeah, the 51%.
That's right. We said that.
So it should be public
Yeah, all I'm
schools.
saying is that I would just leave it up to the school district, whether they want to go through all.
Have any.
Feel the system they have is fine.
Go ahead, you.
Oh, no, sorry, so let's talk about foods first. Yeah, I guess I feel like I forget this sometimes, but I just wonder, I don't know how the requirements that we think we can put in place, in line with what our policy values are. I'm not sure how those operate in like the federal context as well. When you sort of look at recent Supreme Court decisions, like I'm just not sure how this all sort of comes together legally. I think there's what we want to do and what we think we can do, but then I don't think we can forget about sort of those higher level
Well,
legal requirements.
we do have, it does, the governor's language proposes, but I think it's worth asking, if you wouldn't mind following up with our state council, on it would be great. But it does define what schools qualify to be school choice schools.
Right, I'm just saying
With
what,
generally applicable standards.
yes, right, and then sort of thinking that through a little bit.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind following up with your council on it, that'd be great.
So one of the questions I have about this topic, comes from challenges I have in my rural district with districts that have actually merged their governance models into larger districts. But we have different choice districts, so we couldn't, do you see what I'm saying? We have different delivery models within my county. I'll just
Yeah.
use my county as an example. And one of the advantages in my very hilly rural area is that many of our children live near another school. And sometimes that school in our fixed delivery county is closer to a school that isn't part of my district. So let's just say, for example, my county became and I'm not advocating this at all, but I'm using it for an example. If my county were a district, right now in my district, which has 3 elementary schools and a middle high school, well, 4, not 3 elementary schools and a middle high school. We have what we call inter-district school choice because of geographic location for kids. And we actually pay tuition on a case-by-case basis because we made the decision we had to close the school because we couldn't staff it, couldn't find staffing because the numbers were so low. So we are paying tuition outside of our district, but in our SU on a one-on-one case-by-case basis. There are reasons, I think, in districts to have geographic reasons for parents to choose to go to the school, a different school. So in a larger district, are we gonna go with a system where kids are assigned to a certain school or is there
Well,
just a limit on number?
H454 does assign every kid to
It
a school.
does.
Yeah.
And so I recognize that. So
Yeah.
I guess I'm asking that
But
question
this-
and whether, because
This is the bigger question of what do we want to prescribe and what do we want to allow new school boards to be able to decide?
right, I just, with the choice that's in here for school choice schools, which we've been talking about, it's 9-12.
Oh, yes, but
And
you
I'm
could,
talking
but
about,
creating intra-district choice among buildings.
that's what I'm talking about. I don't know whether that's even on the table here. It wasn't really
That's.
addressed
yes.
here. It
So
could
that's
be
a-
addressed here.
That
but
would be a great question, to have legislative council follow up on.
I'm not advocating one way or the other. I'm just
No,
trying to
I
make sure
appreciate that.
students and families' needs are met. And right now I am witnessing where they're not. I literally have kids that are 5 minutes from a school outside of the district.
Right. They would no longer be outside of the district.
That's my point,
Yeah.
right? So, but they're right now assigned to a school
Yeah.
and they're literally 5 minutes
Yeah.
from a different school in a different district.
Right. And that goes on all over the state there.
Right.
Or kids who live within shouting distance of Montpelier High School.
I had a school
Montpelier.
board meeting last night that we agreed to tuition 3 of them because the school is closed that they would normally go to. If the school were still open, they'd still be 5 minutes away from a different school, but they wouldn't be going to that school.
And I think within H454, the assignment of students to a school is done by the school board.
Right, so I would want to make sure that there's clarity. on
Yeah,
it. I
yeah.
just want to make sure that parents are feeling heard
I
and
appreciate that. All right. I'm about out of gas, everybody else.
I'm glad we're better.
All right,
you
well,
still have-
I have to go down to appropriations. Talk to them there. So we'll call it there, everybody.